give it another good smack on the back part. Okay. Little foggy spot in the back. And you guys tell me it looks like it's evolving. See that? It's like a double spot, like a double rainbow. There's a thicker inside spot now and a larger, I guess, less opaque spot ring around it. What's up, guys? Jake with T and Taz. We're coming with another special red dot video today. I'll put those there. Today we've got something special for you from Redwin. This is the Redwin Cherno, kind of like Chernobyl, 1x23 3 MOA red dot. This was actually sent out to us by Redwin. Thank you, Redwin. We really do appreciate it. They know, though, that anytime we get free stuff, we tend to beat the piss out of it. For those that are watching for the first time, we do this because we think it's important to us, and not just to you at home, to know that stuff like this budget-friendly stuff, is worth your time, but more importantly, your hard-earned money. So today we're gonna go over the specs for this particular red dot, give you our honest thoughts impressions, get zeroed up, of course, and then we're gonna properly beat the piss out of it to see how she does. Okay, so here's the deal, guys. Last week I filmed out here in piss pouring rain, and I was going to film this red dot on this AR at the time, but it was pouring rain so bad I just wanted to get the heck out of there because it starts thunderstorming. I chose to leave this up here in my bag, and well, you can't see because of the leaves, but in that big chest right there. So the end result was this thing was freaking covered, my AR, in rust. My little PSA 10.5 inch. Thankfully I had some WD-40, so I WD-40'd up real well. Bulk carrier, barrel, everything. And all that moisture and everything really set in. Just a little disclosure here for you guys to know if we have any issues. Alright, so go over all the specs and features of the Redwin Cherno 1x23 3 MOA red dot. So this is a red dot that is going to fit on basically any of your top Picatinny rails there. Has a very similar style as like your SIG red dots, especially the Romeos. Very same look and appeal to it. One thing I really like about that is it does line up with your front and rear sides. So I've got my flip up rear here and my fixed front there. And I was able to actually get a pretty good close co-witness with this red dot with those front and rear sights. It wasn't perfect, it was left and right, it was great, but I need to actually pull it down a little bit to get lined up with where my point of impact was. But for the most part, it was pretty spot on. Now it features a super LED, as they call it. Essentially what that means is it's going to get you about 50,000 hours of battery life, depending on your brightness setting, of course. There's actually 10 different brightness settings, 8 of which are going to be for daylight, 2 of which are going to be for night vision. All that's going to be actually powered by a CR2032 battery, which, spoiler alert, they don't actually give you the battery. This is actually my own little red dot battery, which I can't really try to get out right now. I'll have to pop that out later. I was wanting to show you this, but I've got some B-roll footage to show you. You can actually run this red dot without the battery, provided you've got a strong enough light source such as sunlight. In fact, I was actually able to test this out at home with just my Cloud Defensive MCH light, shining it on the brightest setting. I was able to get my red dot to glow for me, very nice and bright. So in that sense, it is kind of like a hollow sun red dot in a lot of ways. And just like a hollow sun, it also has the shake awake technology, meaning if you set this thing down somewhere and then go back to pick it up, after a few minutes it'll turn off for you. But when you pick it back up, it'll remember your brightness settings and all that and come back on for you. So it's very nice that it's got that. Of course, IP67 waterproof. No, 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 no. Shockproof. I guess we're going to find out today if it's drop proof as well. I have a couple of gripes about that I'm not a big fan of, things I want to bring to your attention that may or may not sway your decision on if this is the right red dot for you. A little high, I'll fix that. Now look at this, look at this. See how it's kind of got that foggy spot there? That's on the inside. Got some moisture action up in there. Not sure if the seal on this back piece of glass is the best it could be, but I just noticed that it kind of comes and goes. It wasn't happening as I was shooting earlier. It just kind of shows up whenever I let this thing sit out in the sun for a little bit. Now keep in mind, all of this I'm about to tell you is before we started the actual torture testing part of this video. So with that being said, my opinion of this could improve or well, get worse based on the drop test and torture test. But some gripes I have with this red dot right off the bat. Like I said earlier, I actually left this red dot with the AR and everything out here in my like field chest thing that I've got, essentially because it was piss pouring rain. One thing I didn't account for was the fact that I had it in my nylon bag that was really moist and wet at that time, and I just threw it all inside the chest where the air couldn't really get to it, and the humidity and the moisture kind of locked in. That caused my AR to rust quite a bit. I don't know if you can see it there, but there's lots of rust here. Thankfully, the red dot did not rust at all, so that's good to say. But ever since I've done that, and it wasn't like this prior, but ever since I've done that, you see that spot there? That's not like a weird blurry effect from the focus or something. No, that's a condensation spot, okay? I cannot get that spot to come out because that's really disappointing. Not that I can't use the red dot, I most certainly can, but there's a big foggy circle that makes it harder to positively identify targets. So that could be an issue. Another thing I noticed, again, noticed it today and not prior to this, was this back seal of this piece of glass here. Now I've got some B-roll footage here, but essentially what I noticed was this glass looks like now that the edge was essentially hot glued in. I don't know for certain that's what they used to seal that in. It could be why my glass is now fogging up on the inside. I'm not entirely sure. I do have some B-roll footage here where I was looking at the red dot in my room prior to actually coming out here. So you tell me, looking at the footage, do you think that it was like this beforehand? I don't think it was until I left it out in the weather. What's up, guys? Jake with Front Porch Tactical here. Quick little edit. I got some cats here too, by the way. I've had a couple days to kind of step away from the filming session. So that ring, that like hot glue looking ring that goes around the back piece of glass, it looked fine on my initial B-roll footage when I was trying to show the battery not being in the red dot, and yet the red dot could still work with a flashlight. So it went from that state to where I then got everything wet from the soaking rain day we had. I then put the optic that was on the whole AR bag in my storage chest, and it sat there for about 3 or 4 days. Granted, that storage chest is waterproof, but there was already moisture built up and soaked into the bag that really, I think that water is what may have messed up that seal on the back piece of glass. I don't know if that means it's not waterproof or what that really means, but I think the combination of that rain, that water, that persistent residual moisture being there in constant contact with the red dot, along with just the heat, because it is middle of summertime, it's been very hot. I think those factors came into play and actually caused the red dot to have that hot glue ring appearance, and that in turn would lead me to think that maybe the seal wasn't really still intact. That caused a lot of that moisture that was still stored in the bag to get into the glass on the inside. But the thing that I don't really like about this dot most of all, the price. This comes at roughly 170 bucks, 179, something like that. Just depends on where you look. There's a train in the background screeching on the rails as we speak. That's that noise that you hear. That's how upsetting the price is. I'll just give that a minute to pass. I really would have liked to have seen it come in roughly around 150 bucks or less, especially for the fact that it's more of a third party than Holosun or EOTech or any of the other big boys. Not that Holosun's a big boy, but you get what I'm saying. As far as the solar panel goes, I want to point this out to you before we start drop testing it, because I want you to see that this solar panel, it's very good. It's very Holosun-ish. This is more of like a hard plastic or glass, probably plastic, whereas the Holosun one is more of like a soft, clear plastic. So I'm curious to see how that's going to do on the drop test, or the hammering for that matter. And you'll see I've actually had to let my camera cool off for a bit, and as I've been sitting out here letting my camera cool, that spot has gotten a little smaller, but it is still very visible there. Very, very visible. Look at that. But regardless of all these issues, regardless of the price being a little bit more than I expected, it's not going to matter if it can't survive our torture test. So, on to the torture test. Behold! The tree of damnation, where red dots like this come to live or die. This is where we take the red dot and we essentially just smack it like a hammer hitting a nail, much like a hammer hitting a nail, I guess. Wow. Okay. Let's get each side of it here. Get the back and front here. My little foggy spot in the back. And you guys tell me it looks like it's evolving. Like a double spot, like a double rainbow. There's a thicker inside spot now and a larger, I guess, less opaque spot ring around it. Now, as you'd expect, we did get some slight, there you go, you can see there's slight cracking, but honestly, it did a lot better than I expected. Now you can see I can kind of like push in like that, but it may have been like that before. I just couldn't see it with that reflective surface. Everything else though, I mean, look at, like, despite that, like everything else is still good. If you look carefully here, there's my target, top half the A-zone. Had a couple weird flyers there. That was more me, just my bad shitty aiming. But once I focused and dialed it in, yeah, they're pretty much all touching each other. Behold, the brick of damnation. This is where we take red dots, we load up a fully loaded mag, of course nothing in the chamber, of course, right? But we take a fully loaded magazine, place it into the AR or gun, whatever it is, and then we immediately drop it about 5 or 6 times directly onto the red dot to see if it survives. Maybe it'll hold 0 too. We'll find out. 2. Oh. Well, we broke the brick of damnation again. Look how that condensation's evolved into a larger, thicker spot. That's kind of weird, right? Look at that. All kinds of scuffed up, like, damage and everything. I mean, look at my look at my windage right there, or elevation, whichever one that is. Look at that. It's all dented up pretty bad. Right? I mean, we don't expect you to do this, but this is what you can expect here. Rubber buttons are still good. Yep. Those are still good. This little plastic panel up here, back held up pretty good as well. Or rather the front, I should say. No real damage there. It's all held up pretty good. No scratches, no cracks. Interesting. Wow, okay. My 0 has shifted significantly down and to the right. Okay, so first I was aiming at the target on the left side there in the top of the A zone. Where are my bullet holes? You'll see they're all concentrated down below in the C and D zone in the bottom right corner. I then went to this target here. Now granted, I haven't spray painted it, so you still see my holes right where they were supposed to be in the top half of the A zone from before we drop tested it and after we had hit it against a tree. But look again, bottom right corner, all my shots after the drop test are down to the right. So that's unfortunate. All right, so how do I feel about the Redwin Cherno? I think you guys probably know how I feel, but let's be honest. I would not buy this red dot. There's too many issues with the quality. The red dot is good itself. The actual red dot emitter is clear enough to actually use in this bright ass environment. It didn't crack. That's good. We obviously beat it against the tree of damnation. It held 0 there. It lost 0 on the brick of damnation. And the whole time we were finding this huge, giant condensation spot that, as you can see, is continuing to grow the longer we're out here. I don't know what that rubber sealing was that they used, if it was hot glue or something else, but it's failing. This is not acceptable. It shouldn't wear away just from my freaking finger picking at like that and just rubbing it, you know? That's crazy. Maybe that's why there's condensation filling up on the inside. I'm not entirely sure. The last thing I don't like about it is the price. 179 bucks, 170 depending on where you look. You can go online right now on Amazon and get a Holosun 403B. It's very similar to this. In fact, I think this kind of mimics that style with the solar panel and all that for right around $180. And you know, I know at least, that the inside will not fog up on you and you won't have like the sealing of these glass pieces kind of peeling off with your fingers. In fact, I actually forgot, I had it out here this whole time. I actually have my Holosun 403C. This is the green dot, red dot, very similar to this one. Now granted, my Holosun dot has been out here in the chest in the Cherno box waiting for me to come back. So it's not like I just grabbed this from the house and brought out here. It's been under the same exact conditions as this one. And as you can see, the difference is quite stark. So you tell me which one you'd rather go with. Unfortunately for me, it's not going to be this one. I appreciate that Redwin sent this out to us for testing, but I cannot recommend it. Not at all, at least not in the current configuration. For 170 bucks, I expect much better. If you're going to have issues of quality like this, then your dot needs to be less than $100, at least, starting at less than $100. So yeah, not a positive experience, and that's unfortunate. They didn't even give you a flipping battery. But at the end of the day, I don't make these videos for anybody but you. I don't make them for the companies, I don't make them for sponsors. I just make them for you to give you an actual honest impression of some of this budget-friendly stuff. And unfortunately, this one did not meet our expectations. Guys, if you want this kind of content, make sure to like, subscribe, comment down below. What do you think about the Redwin Cherno? I'd love to hear from you. We will see you next time.